Welcome back to the Childhood Cancer Perspective, and thank you all for sticking with me. I'm going to start this episode out by saying once again that social media is very much a love-hate relationship between myself, our organization, and this podcast. But the very positive side of what that brings is meeting incredible people that can turn tragedy into purpose, as well as kind of be able to share their stories about what's going on in the community that maybe the general public doesn't hear about because the media doesn't allow the hard stuff to be shared in the airwaves reality. So today we're going to talk to somebody very special. Her name is Bobbi. She is the mother to Nova, who I have this beautiful painting in the background here. And we're going to talk a little bit about her story and a little bit about what you're doing now in Nova's honor. So Bobbi, thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you, Curtis, and thank you so much for asking me. It means so much, and I just love seeing everything you do. I feel like you're going 100 miles an hour at all times, so I'm just like blown away by that. It's a constant, and I can really appreciate that. I mean, you're out on the hill, and you're doing the battle corn packages, and you're out advocating. You have, your toy drive, and you do your gala, and then you let Nova's artwork be sold, and that just meant so much to me for you to even ask. It's just a beautiful thing. So thank you so much for all that you do for all of us.
Absolutely. I really do appreciate you saying that. And everything we do, obviously, within the organization, the podcast, social media, all of that, we never do it for the accolades. We do it because it's right. We do it because our kids deserved better. And we do it because they deserve to have their legacy secured. And it's an honor for us to be able to do that. So I appreciate you seeing it and appreciating it because it means a lot. It means that we're doing the right thing. So thank you so much.
And I mean, I really appreciate it because it can get really hard. I mean, even for me, I'm not even doing all of that. And even for me, sometimes it gets hard when you feel like you're kind of screaming out and it's like no one's really picking it up. And it can make people want to stop, but you don't. And I just really, really respect that about you. So thank you.
Absolutely. And it's honestly a conversation I just had yesterday. I do go 100 miles an hour all the time. It is very hard for me to stop and sit still, but I feel like our kids gave us that. They gave us that energy and they gave us that guidance, and they didn't stop, and they didn't stop smiling and spreading joy and cheer and everything that they had. And so I feel like if I slow down, then I'm doing a disservice, and it's really important for me to allow all of our stories to be told and all of our stories to be told in a way that's not going to be censored, which is why I started this podcast, because social media does put a little bit of a filter on things that we talk about, and they don't like us to share the really hard stuff. And so that's why I want us to be able to do that, because childhood cancer is not pretty. Childhood cancer is not smiling children running down a hallway. It's just not. There's so much more that goes on beyond that, beyond the bald heads that everybody associates with that child. And unfortunately, that's such a stigma that I wish that we could just get rid of, because our kids are so much more than that. So that's why I wanted to do this. So I want you to be able to just kind of share a little bit about Nova and how everything started, because I kind of feel like our stories are going to match up, because getting to the diagnosis a lot of times is very similar, which is another thing that I wish we could fix. But I would love to hear more about Nova, and just as a person, but also kind of how all this started.
Well, first of all, Nova is, I am a mother of 5, and I'm bonus mom to 2. So when me and my husband married, I had 4 sons, and he had a son and daughter, and neither of us really felt like we needed any more children. So, and plus I had my tubes tied after the 4th son, because I thought, first of all, that's just too much for anybody. But second of all, it's like I'd probably have a 5th boy, and I can't. 4 is enough. And so, but about 8 years into our marriage, we decided that we would like to have a child of our own. And I was nearing 40. And so that was also like a high risk. And I had to have my tubes untied for it. So I would have to go through a surgery. And, it's not cheap. My husband has always been into cars. He grew up like in the garage with his dad, and like worked in transmissions. And so they like to rebuild old cars, and they had rebuilt a 63 Black Nova, and he had had it since he was a young teen. And so he decided he would sell it, to pay for the surgery. So that way it wasn't even taken out of our savings. So I just said, hey, if it's a girl, then we'll name her after the car that you sold for her, because he cried, signing the bill of sale. So he was literally crying. And plus, it was a double rainbow that I would even have a girl. So when we found out we were pregnant, that was a beautiful thing. So we really just had a 50-50 shot, which is pretty much how it is altogether. But before we had no shot. Whenever I heard it was a girl, I mean, I think I probably made that woman like lose her hearing for the day, because we were on the phone and she said it's a female, and I was like, say it again, like hopefully I didn't mishear that. You said male, like what? I was like, so you're saying it's a girl, like say that. So she's like, it's a girl, and I was screaming in the phone, just so happy. And I say that because Nova loves to hear that story, and that when we had her, it was just like I had missed her my whole life, and I finally got to hold her. And she was wide-eyed looking around the room, just, and I just would tell her she was more than I ever could have dreamed, she could be. And she definitely proved that in her life. She was just a joy, a really good baby, hit all the milestones on time. In fact, it's funny looking back, because she was always the tallest girl, which was really strange because me and Justin are neither all that tall. So we were always blown away how she was always taller than all the kids, and she, she was just curious. She loved animals, she loved insects, she loved digging for the earthworms. We loved saving them off the sidewalk when they would get, stuck. She liked to, I give shade to the ants, and her heart was just so loving. She just loved she loved all animals. She loved learning new facts about things. She loved, the beach, shells, mermaids, unicorns, painting, coloring, all of the fun things that, the little girls do growing up when she was 4. She was a girly girl for sure. But at the same time, she also was a little tomboy. She didn't mind getting dirty. So she was like a perfect line of princess and grit, And she even went through phases where she wouldn't go to daycare without wearing a big fancy frilly dress with her sneakers and dirty face. She just was an amazing being. And around 4 years old, I remember she was talking to me, and one of her eyes went inward. And it was just briefly, but I thought to myself, and I told her, I said, Nova, I was like, I said, your eyes just crossed. And she's like, what? And I realized she doesn't understand what I'm saying. And so she purposely did not do that. And my immediate gut just sunk, as if something is terribly wrong, even though it was just a second of it. And then she did it again, like, the next day. I immediately scheduled an appointment with her doctor, and I even called her school. I'm like, have y'all noticed, anything like her eye going inward? They said no. But one thing I had noticed that didn't really make sense until later was that she was acting a little more tired, like not as much energy. And so she wanted to lay down a lot. And that wasn't like her. When she came home, she just wanted to usually play, but she was more so laying down, wanting to watch like cartoons or something. And so I took her to her doctor, and, we thought maybe it was strabismus. And because I guess that's common between 0, like infant, and 4, for it to happen at that time. And that it could possibly be cured with, a patch or glasses, and at the worst case scenario, the surgery. And I think I was okay with that, but I still had this sinking feeling, but not sure why I felt like that. And we were about to go on a vacation out of state, and I asked her doctor, I was like, well, do you think we should wait? Like, you think we should, wait to see? He's like, no, like, go and enjoy, which isn't his fault. Like, I hear the story so much of how many different things doctors will go through to get to the main thing, that it just surprises me now that we just don't go straight for the possibility that it might be what nobody wants it to be, or that it might be that, even though it's rare, even though it's not. And so he said, no, go ahead, enjoy. Yeah. But progressively her symptoms worsened, and her eyes started going inward a lot more and staying there. She seemed very just wanting to sleep. Her whole personality changed, and it got worse over the next week or so. Now, in the meantime, I did schedule with the pediatric ophthalmologist, but you have to wait like 4 to 6 weeks to get in with specialists, which is another thing I wish would change, because so many things happen with this and so many times the specialist cannot see them over a month, but a lot can happen in that month, whenever it was to where it was, which obviously it's already bad if it's showing the outward symptoms, And so we were waiting for that. But in the meantime, I thought, well, for all I know, because, when it comes to eyes or your vision, it can make you feel blurry, make you want to stop, make you want to maybe close your eyes and lay down. So I thought maybe the strabismus was doing this, because I know nothing about that either. Never experienced it or knew anybody that had. So, but even, family and friends were like, this just isn't her. So my aunt called her doctor, who got her in with a different pediatric ophthalmologist, and when we finally got to him, I was so desperate for answers, because now she wasn't eating as much. Her eye was completely inward. And when we were sitting in the waiting room, she actually peed in her pants, and she didn't even know it. And so I was like, Nova, and she just looked down like, what? And so Justin ran out to the car, grabbed a towel, because I'm like, no, nothing's going to stop. I mean, obviously she's 4, she's potty trained. She hasn't done this in years. It just wasn't like her. And so we just wrapped the towel around her, like, I don't care, we're going in there peeing all. I didn't have extra clothes, because it just doesn't happen anymore. I didn't come prepared like that. And he dilated her eyes, and he, I told him all the symptoms, and he just said, your daughter doesn't need glasses, she needs an MRI as soon as possible, because both of her optic nerves are swollen, which can only mean pressure in the brain. That's all I knew at that time. Pressure in the brain. And I feel like the elevator just dropped underneath both of us. And we were just in shock. I mean, shock. And he said, I'm going to try to get you in with an MRI by Friday. He said, if they can't take you by Friday, then you should go to the emergency room. So I call her doctor again, and I tell her what's going on. He's like, wait a minute. When you came in, you said, I said, yeah, but I just figured, I don't know if these other symptoms were coming from that. He said, no, just take her straight to the emergency room right now. I'm going to tell them that she's coming. So we get home. We're just in a whirlwind of packing up a bag really quick. Both of us can hardly speak. We're just, now it's like, oh my God, what's going on inside my child's head? I go back to things like, did she fall? Did she fall at school and I didn't know it? Did she fall at home and hit her head really hard on something? I just didn't know it. And never in my mind would it have occurred to me even that the pressure was a tumor. I don't know why, because I'd never heard of it before. So I just figured she had a head injury somehow inside, and that I just missed that. And then, of course, the guilt of feeling like I should have went with that first gut instinct and not waited 4 more weeks for this to happen. And of course, I'll always look back on all of the things I feel like I should have caught even before that. So we go to the emergency room. They take her in for her first, like, a x-ray scan, which now she's 4. It's her first time in the emergency room, first time in this big donut scan. I remember they gave her a little toy afterwards, and that toy would also be the beginning of what is coming later, but just seeing her actual smile, because even though we aren't talking yet, she knows something is very wrong with probably how mom and dad are acting and how we're getting her to this emergency room, and she knows it's scary. And at the same time, she's also kind of, just a little bit tired, and she's just sleeping on the bed while we wait. And we're just sitting in that little room waiting while she's laying there, holding her little Rapunzel doll. And the doctor comes in and puts this picture on the wall and says, like, this is going to be hard. And he's like, but your daughter has he called it a lesion, I think, even then, or something like that. Even still, I'm like, lesion? And he said, this white, area here is the lesion. The black around it are these pools of fluid that is building up in your daughter's brain, and we need to do surgery immediately. And the nurse told us that she didn't think she would have made it another night had we not shown up that night, and that she would have, I guess, most likely had a stroke or something from it. And we're still just floored. We're trying to take in what they're saying, and it is like drinking from a fire hose or something. It is. Now we have doctors coming in and out from different, like, specialties, asking the same questions over and over, and we're both looking at each other like, how did we not, I don't, how did it get here? And still just trying to accept what they're saying, and that we're about to go into ICU now. So in one day, and in just a minute, like, the whole world is upside down. And from here on out, we're living in an upside down world, where everything abnormal becomes your new normal. And so we were in the ICU that night, and they were planning the surgery to stop the pressure, to reroute, and to, I guess, I can't remember, I think it's a EVD or something that would read the pressure, but also so they could figure out what this is and what type that it is. And the next day, when she's first going into surgery again, we're like, now everything first is happening right now, and it's all the worst first you can possibly think of right now. And now they're about to take her into surgery. It's now her first surgery, which is a brain surgery, and we don't even know what to say because she's 4. And so we just tell her that we love her and that she's just going to take a little nap, and they're going to take pictures while she's sleeping, and then she's going to wake up to mom and dad, and that we love her. And so the next day, I feel like I didn't even cry right down until she went into that surgery because I'd held it in for so long, what seemed like 48 hours of holding it in, that I fell apart afterwards because I finally felt safe enough to let it go, because I did not want her to think what we are really thinking, and I did not want her to be afraid because we were scared to death. And so afterwards, they did the biopsy, and we waited for the results, which seemed like forever. I think it was like 5 days of waiting. Every day a doctor came in, I would hope this is when they're going to tell us. And I started looking it up because they said, that this tumor was like on the pineal gland. And when I saw what type it was, which some people pronounce it pineoblastoma, pineoblastoma, it's tomato, doesn't matter. That's the one I did not want it to be. And that's the one that came up first, and that's the one that gave me like this scary news that we might have just a 20% chance of keeping her, and and then the other one was like a germ cell tumor or something. And again, we're learning all this really fast. I'm kind of a researcher myself, and as soon as they gave me any information, I'm like a Google doctor. I'm like searching everything it possibly be, which is probably the worst, but I needed to be, I guess, in my mind, prepared for what they're going to tell me in a way, even though you really can never be prepared for something like that. And so when they said it was a cancer that I didn't want it to be, and that we need to do emergency surgery now. And I remember him saying that we're lucky it's like centralized or localized right there, and there's just one. And I was just thinking to myself, lucky, like there is absolutely nothing lucky about this, But now I know exactly what he means, because after the second time, that's not how it was. And he just said we need to get it out immediately. So we're planning, we're going to have this surgery. It's going to be, 6 to 8 hour surgery. All of a sudden now my daughter jumps from this other surgery to another brain surgery. We're still here in the hospital having to adapt to this. We both now are not working. We've just been at this hospital every day, just trying to take in this horrible dream. It just doesn't feel real. So they told us everything that could happen before the surgery. You have to sign off, all these effects and stuff that could happen, that she may not talk, that she may not even be able to keep her eyes open, that they might be going different places. She might lose the ability for movement and all of these things, but at the same time, it's like, but the alternative is, permanent. You lose her. So you're like, okay, where do I sign? And then like, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours later, and we're so blessed to have had a lot of family and friends in that room with us in the waiting room. And on that surgery day, before she went in, she was really hungry, because she can't eat. And the surgery didn't happen until in the afternoon. She wanted her Funyuns because of the steroids they were giving her. So she had this, and we were just happy that she was actually looking and sounding better. Her vision came back. Her eyes she was already looking better before the surgery, after they found a way to remove the pressure and stuff. And so she wanted her Funyuns. That's all she wanted. And so we told her that when she wakes up, that she will have a whole case of Funyuns. And also we told her, that God loved her before the surgery, because it was like, wow, I may not see her again, because that's also one of the other, something that could happen. It's such a dangerous surgery. And just knowing that we may not see her, it's like, what do you say to your 4-year-old that you may not see again? And we just told her that we loved her. And I felt like at that time I needed for her to trust God. And I just said that God loves you and God is like your father, because in my mind, I just didn't want her, again, to be scared. Even if she's not with me, I don't want her to be scared wherever she is. And we just prayed. And when the anesthesiologist came and told me that mom, or she said, your daughter said, mom said that you're going to be so proud, because she was so brave, just like you asked her. And I was thinking, she said that before y'all went in. She's like, no, she's saying it right now, Mom. You want to come see her? I mean, it was like such a beautiful, wonderful moment. And it was the first time that I thought things were going to be okay. the first time, since the whole thing happened in, 10 days. Now I feel like it's going to be okay. And the doctor said that it was the closest thing to perfect you can get to the surgery. He's like, you really can't ever be 100% of getting it out because there's still the cancer cells left, but we, got 99, whatever, 98% of his tumor out. It's gone except for whatever the cells had left behind. And that she didn't have any of those side effects happen. She seemed very strong. And as soon as we walked in there, she wanted her Funyuns. She did not forget, which was just made us all smile and laugh that she wanted that. And so she was still her. And I was just so, so grateful. My heart was so grateful, and so grateful to her wonderful, wonderful pediatric neurosurgeon, Dr. Aldave. It was just amazing. And so now, Dr. Aldave and the team said, like, you're not done. Like, he said, it's going to be like Nova's climbing a mountain. And right now, everything's good before you get, but as you start going through this, it feels, it's just really hard on them, their bodies. It's hard on us to keep going in this way, to see this, to witness it, to watch it. But we have a plan. And that plan, Nova's type, has never had a study. There's never been a trial. I don't know right now, today, as of today, if that's still the case. It was not the case then. In fact, there was very little known on it. I remember even asking Alexa, I don't know if you have it in the room, so I'm sorry if it says something back to you, but I remember asking her about it. She knew nothing about it. It's like, sorry, I don't, whatever, she couldn't help it. I was like, see, that's a scary thing when they tell you your child has something that nobody really knows nothing about. So it's like you're just throwing stuff at them, hoping that it works. It almost feels like your child's now a science experiment. That is not a good feeling. There's no confidence in it. It's just, you're just hoping against hope that this works, whatever this is. And I'm willing to do whatever that you say it is because I want my daughter. And so they said that, St. Jude had come up with a protocol for medulloblastoma, which is the closest to Nova's type, I guess, kind of like, I don't know, distant cousins or something. It's the closest to the type, but they don't really know specifically about Nova's type because there hasn't been, this clinical trial or studies on that. But they have found success in children with her type with that protocol. And so that was 30 rounds of proton radiation. It was going to be 4 rounds of extreme chemo inpatient, which would be about 4 days of that, weeks off, and then back in. So it was 4 months of that. So, you have to accept so many hard things happening to your child, like even being put to sleep every single day, sedation every single day whenever she was getting the radiation. And then her hair came out, and the weird thing is it didn't come out till the end, like the last few days of the radiation, but I expected it because, it was like one of those things. And even prior to that, when they gave you all of the things that could happen because of the radiation and explained to you everything that could happen even years later, because it's even if it's proton, again, you're like, okay, but then the alternative is a permanent one. It's a permanent side effect of her being gone. So where do I sign? But that's just me. Like I would not, and I do not judge any other parents for choosing whatever that they choose to do. But for me, I just said, where do I sign? If it means she could possibly live, if it means she might have a future, then that's what we want to do, and we'll just take it from here. We'll see how it goes. During the radiation, she started losing her surgery, her vision week by week, lessening. And they couldn't figure out what was going on. And so we got a second opinion, and they said to give her steroids immediately. Well, that was already like in the last week by the time that happened. And so what had happened, because her optic nerves were so, I guess, under so much stress and pressure from the fluid buildup, that putting the radiation on it just fried it. And so had she been on the steroids all the way through, maybe she would have her vision, but she lost it. She still had some vision, but both eyes were considered legally blind. Her left eye was just really blurry, but her right eye is just like a central, so she could only see straight ahead but not around, and that's permanent. And then of course she had to go through all the chemo drugs, and it's just awful to see your 4-year-old not be able to be, a 4-year-old, and that this is your life now, but we just kept taking it day by day. I could not think about everything that was to come. Even though I knew everything that was coming, I just stayed in the day, and I would figure out, how are we going to get through today? I'm not going to worry myself with all that they told us is coming. And I tried for Nova to keep her life as normal as possible. I made sure that we were in the hospital, we still got up at the same time as we did at home, that she still brushed her teeth in the same way, at the same time. And I try to give her some options, like, which medication do you want to take, this one or this one, and do you want to wait 30 minutes, or do you want to wait, 5 minutes, and to allow her some choices and control in her life, because everything's just, it's upside down for her too. All of her normalcy is gone, and being with her friends in the daycares or at school, or even being able to be with her family, is gone. And it's just so hard. It's really hard to even go back and describe. It's just, it's unreal. It's like you're living in a whole other world. But we try to make the best of it for her and allow her those times of where she could choose. And it was just really hard to watch as a parent what the treatment did, in itself to her. And after the chemo, she was considered no evidence of disease even the whole time through treatment, but still they're like, this is the best chance of it not, coming back. So as far as the treatment, again, I would do it all over again if it meant having her for the next 3 years that we did before it came back. And although I hated that she lost so much, she also permanently lost her hair. That doesn't happen for all children, but it did for her, especially because she was still 4 and everything is still, forming. And so she had, permanent radiation-induced alopecia. And also it caused microbleeds in her brain, where they were watching that along with every MRI to make sure that they had not multiplied, and that would itself would cause possibly a stroke or even early Alzheimer's, and also made her growth hormone inactive. So she would not be, she would not grow, I guess, to her, fullest potential, or what was planned, I guess, in her life. Again, all these things we could live through, we could get through to have her. And at the same time, we're also mad, that it was taken from her and that it would affect her for the rest, of her life. But we tried not to let her live in that. And at the same time allowed her to feel those feelings. When I had to tell her that her hair was not coming back, that was really hard. And I didn't even know it until like a year later. We were out on vacation and we ran into this family where the daughter saw Nova without hair, and the family came over and asked, what type of cancer or whatever she fought. I told her, and they said that their daughter had just also recovered around the same time from leukemia. And I noticed that her daughter's hair was already, to her shoulders. It was like a year later. And I thought, maybe it's not. I mean, it should be longer. So I brought her back into the doctor, and they just said, yeah, it's because of the radiation. And because we had been talking about all the things when her hair comes back. We had even started taking pictures every day so we could do like a timeline lapse of when her hair comes back. And then when I told her, the one thing she said was, will I be able to still go back into ballet because the ballerinas have buns? And I told her, absolutely, because ballerinas dance from their heart and not, it has nothing to do with their hair. And you could definitely be a dancer. But even with the vision, it took her off her balance of not being able to dance the same or watch the line, or, her having to physically move her head to watch the dancers and stuff. But she still danced again. And I am so, so proud of her for that. And so much these children are having to overcome. So even for the children that survive this, they will not come out unharmed or not permanently, even if it's scarred on the inside emotionally from the medical trauma that happens to them and to the parents. So, and I feel like I've just been going on and on about what happened before, but that's certainly not her life. But that's just our story of her the first time we heard it and the first set of treatment.
I think you have to go on and on, because again, this is all the stuff that nobody hears on the outside. We see everything on TV, we hear it in the media, we hear that word that we don't like, that rare word. But again, and I said at the beginning, and I was absolutely right, your story mirrors what we went through and probably so many other families out there. It was our daughter's eye turned in, and we're like, what the hell is that? going on. And she didn't notice it. Like, she couldn't tell that her eye was turning. It was just like, no, it's not. Yes. And luckily for us, I guess if you want to find luck in all of this, my sister works for an ophthalmologist, and we got an emergency visit to come in and say swollen optic nerves. And my wife did the same thing. Google swollen optic nerves. The first option that pops up is brain tumor. It's the first thing that pops up in Google. And I said, and I'm the eternal optimist. And I said, no, that's not what it is. Absolutely not what it is. Something wrong with her eye. We'll get it fixed. We're not doing this. And unfortunately, a few hours later, we get a call from her pediatrician, says she's going to Milwaukee now. You guys need to get there right now. We're 2.5 hours away. They said, you're going. They're going to know you're coming. MRI, they called it a mass. So again, they don't like to use, maybe they don't like to use a scary word, tumor, mass, lesion. But when we first met with our neurosurgeon, he said, I know exactly what this is, but I'm not gonna say what it is until, obviously there's a biopsy, but I know what this is because of where it's located and all of that. They can tell. And it was a lot of the same. She had the EVD put in, to relieve the pressure, which helped. It helped with the headaches. It helped with a lot of the vision, things like that. And then you go in for surgery. JC's first surgery was 10 hours, the longest 10 hours of our life. To the point where when the doctor came out finally to tell us everything, I mean, the imprints of the gloves on his hands were still there. His hands were a different color. They had been in gloves for 10 hours to tell us we got it all. We got it all. And, we get to the waiting room to go in to see her. And she's sitting there with a popsicle in her hand with 2 thumbs up. It's like, this is the same thing, right? They could come out not being able to talk, walk, see, all this kind of stuff. And she's looking at you like, okay, can we go home now? And these kids are unfreaking believable. And what you felt all along is the same thing that I know my wife felt, and the same thing that something was said to me by somebody else. Mama gut. The mama gut is something that you trust always, because when something's not right, and you continue to follow that path until you find out what's going on with your child. And I'll be the first one to admit, maybe it's a man thing, maybe it's a dad thing, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I refused in the beginning to believe it was this bad. I thought, when she was feeling bad up the weeks and prior, I thought, okay, maybe because her symptoms were weird, she would feel sick in the morning but fine in the afternoon. I said, maybe she just doesn't want to go to school. I guess I was finding ways to rationalize what was going on. And my wife was absolutely not. There's something wrong. I know my kids. I know something. That mama gut is something that can be trusted far beyond science, I think, sometimes. And you ran with it. And it's incredible what these kids can go through, and I think for me, even after the surgeries, the hospital stays, the MRIs, the CTs, all of that, it was the end of radiation for JC when her hair came out that it hit me the absolute hardest. And she came out of the shower, walked out in the kitchen, and gave me a handful of hair and walked away, and I was a puddle. Like, that broke me, because I was like, this is real. This is hard hitting, because, when the oncologist came in the first time, he said, okay, here's what it is. This is the type of cancer, but the prognosis is not good. That's the information we were given in the beginning. But she went through everything, and she got me out of the hospital and walked herself out, and was like, maybe we're going to be that family that just beats this, and we're going to be that miracle. But she walked out and gave me that hair, and I was like, damn it, like, this is real. This is something that's really going to affect her. Now, the difference is that when her hair fell out, she was like, she was just like, I just won't have to brush it anymore. Like, okay, no big deal. But also, Anova and Jace, they're girls, right? You're defined a lot by the way you look, and I hate that in society, but you are, and that, especially at a young age, 4, 5, 6 years old, you're coming into your own. You're understanding that you look the same as everybody else, and you come in looking different, and it can be, a mental thing. And she just kind of rolled with it. I mean, at one point I shaved my head for her, and she had about 3 hairs hanging on that she would not let me cut off, but that was her control. Right? You gave Nova the choices with the medicine, and, keeping a routine, which is really important. My wife and I did the same thing with, we would never, ever break down in front of her. We kept it to ourselves because we didn't want to scare her any more than what was going on. But giving them anything that they can control in that moment when you essentially are losing control is so important, because they're going through this. We're going through it as a family, but they're going through this fight head on. And as much as I will say I give them a lot of credit all the time. I think these kids don't get enough credit for what they truly understand, even at this young age, and they're supposed to be learning their ABCs and playing on the playground, but they can recite their chemo drugs and their drug routine before a lot of other kids can understand, how many states there are in the country. I mean,
Right.
it's sad, but it really proves how incredible these kids are and how much more respect they demand, not deserve, but demand, because they're going through the worst time of their life. And the reality of it is they're not complaining. You know what I mean? They're just, okay, well, this is life. This is what I'm going to do. And we're going to, and we're going to keep it normal. We try to do the same thing with normalcy. Because they don't need to be treated differently. You know what I mean? They don't need to be treated like something is wrong with them. They're going through something. And I think, we compare all of this together. And like I said, I see a lot of similarities in our stories and a lot of similarities. We also had and this is, again, the only time you're going to hear me say it, a very rare type of brain cancer for JC that, again, there's nothing. There's no protocols out there anywhere. And we did everything we could based on, I think the protocol she was on was a protocol for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, because that was, I guess, the closest thing that they thought would work. And we went with it, and we signed those papers, and we did what we had to do, because, again, like you said, your only alternative is exactly what's going to happen. And even if they say, like, you've got a 20% chance of survival, 30% chance of survival, well, we got a 100% chance of knowing exactly what's going to happen if we do nothing.
Right.
So yeah, we signed the papers, and it's very, like, I say it all the time too, and even when you're signing the chemo papers and things like that, it's about 20 pages worth of side effects with the one page of where you sign, but the very last side effect is death that could happen from it. But you do what you have to do. Like, I don't fault anybody either for what choices they make in this, because you don't know what, what I mean. You're getting into this situation, and a lot of us are blind to it. A lot of us are numb to the fact that it's even as bad as it is. But then when you're riding this and you come in first hand, you're kind of on an island, and you do what you have to do. So I hate that our stories match up like this. I hate that we have to, that our community is so big, but at the same time, the strongest group of people I've ever met in my life, because we understand each other, and we can be there to support each other the way that we need to be supported.
Yeah. And I know, even mentioning whenever you said when the hair fell out, that's, when you knew it was real. And same for us. I was even thinking that was the least of my concern. Like, whenever they said that was one of the side effects, in my mind, like, that's the least of my concern. But when her hair fell out, both me and Justin, complete messes. And yet we're trying to show a brave face for her, because we're told them it's not going to be a big deal, but yet we're falling apart. And just like you said, because before she didn't look sick, nobody would know. Even us, even though she's battling this, nobody would know, because she doesn't look. But as soon as that hair fell out, it was like, this is real. And, and she never really cared about, I mean, at 4, she didn't care as much as she did when she got a little older, And we gave her options. Like, we had a doll without hair, and the child life specialist gave it to us. And she said, this is how Nova will show you what she wants. So the doll had like a hat or like a little band. And Nova got to dress it how she would want. She's like, and that's kind of how Nova will be able to tell you at this age how she would want, and kind of have that conversation with her during that time. And so she's had all the things, and she's like, but she's pretty, without hair. I'm like, yeah, she is. Well, Nova she rarely wore those things, because she is all about comfort. So much about comfort that if it's uncomfortable, she does not care how it looks to you on the outside. She wants to be comfortable. And we never forced it. I had tons of different hair accessories for her, and even wigs at that. Even if she wore it in the beginning, she'd have it off within like 30 minutes, because either it was itchy to her or whatever, and she just didn't care. As she got older, though, just like you were mentioning, when the girls get older and they notice the other girls that are doing stuff with their hair, like, putting it in braids or wearing the ponytails or wearing the ribbons, it does affect her. And just like I was saying with the ballet thing, she assumed at that young age, by that time, I think we were almost 6 when we found out it was permanent. But she was more concerned with would she be able to be a part of instead of really about herself. And then she started asking later on, after we told her it's permanent, she would ask, do you think I'll have my hair again? Do you think my hair will grow back? And that's how I know it's still on her mind and that she's still concerned. I just started answering, you know what? You never know. Like, things change all the time and people come up with all these great inventions. And I said, you know what? You just never know. And since we're not there yet, I don't know. I no longer wanted to say that permanent, because really, what do I know? Anything could, change. And I think it gave her more hope that I didn't want to take from her, because it was in her mind that later on maybe she could, But it did not stop her at all from being her or make her ever hide from her friends or from school, because at school, when all your friends are looking, she never asked to put on the hat or the wig or whatever. She just, went however she wanted to. But I have no doubt that would have affected her more so even later, but we always gave her the choice to, what she wanted to do with it. And I always told her, that she was beautiful every single day of her life. And she really was the most beautiful thing I ever seen. And I told her that being beautiful is what makes someone beautiful is how beautiful you make other people feel. And that you just make everyone feel special. And you are so very beautiful, in that way. And something else that you had said that I wanted to address, the rare thing. Exactly. I say Nova's type is rare, but childhood cancer is not. Like, her tumor type, yes, not the fact that she got it and other children get it every single day. That is not. And so I love that you said that too. Yeah. Yeah, even, listening to you too, it's like there's just so much to relate to that I wish we didn't.
Yeah.
And I don't know, what was I going to say? I was going to say something I forgot. It was something you had said that I wanted to address. I cannot remember. I'm sorry, Curtis.
No, that's all right. Listen,
it's gonna come to me. It's gonna come.
It'll come back around.
Yes.
Yeah. The hair thing was always, like I said, it was always my trigger point, and there was something that hit me in the beginning. And actually, just yesterday, we have a shelf in our living room that has all of JC's stuff. Has her urn on it. It has her pictures on it, and I had forgotten. But behind the picture frame, when we were cleaning everything off, is a bag of her hair, because we saved her hair. Because my wife she hasn't in a while, because it was something that JC and her shared, but she makes reborn dolls. And she was going to use the hair to root it, so it would be JC's real hair in this doll. And that, again, it was like, here I am now thinking about it again. It made it emotional for me, because that was her bright red hair. For her was just...
It was beautiful. Her hair was beautiful.
And it made no sense in this family at all. No sense at all, but it was the most beautiful thing, and everybody loved it, and she loved her red hair. Like, even now, like, we all going through all of this, my trigger points, my things that make me upset or emotional, or when I see kids that are about what age she would be at now, redheads running, that, to me, it's like, that could be her, that could be her growing up, and that's the thing. But again, it just, I don't know, it was the funniest thing, the way that she would react to stuff and the way that she would kind of justify things in her mind. And I don't know, how much of it, really was just, I don't know, maybe it was just the way she was and her brain was, developed or thinking in that way. But one of the side effects, especially for girls, for any type of chemo, is that they won't be able to have kids later on in life. And she's like, oh, that's fine, I'll just adopt. That's the way she, and, oh, my hair fell out, I just won't have to brush it. Like, she just kind of cast it off, and we're over there thinking, well, shouldn't you be a little bit more emotional about this? But that's just the way. Again, yes, they know so much more than they should at this age, and they're so far more advanced in their thinking than I think a lot of kids and a lot of adults even are. But at the same time, they're still innocent. They're still innocent children that have not developed enough to really think what the impact of this is going to be. But she had a plan. I'll just adopt. My hair will fall. I won't have to brush it anymore. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And again, you go through those side effects. You could lose your vision. You could lose your hearing. All of this. And yes, she lost hearing partial hearing in one ear during the beginning of treatment. And it was funny. It was a joke because when she didn't want to listen to you, she would roll over on her good ear. And then and so that's how you knew. Okay, she's done.
She's done.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's what and we would test it too because we would say things and we would say ice cream in her ear and she wouldn't respond. Okay. We know that she couldn't. And that's what she would do. She was her own person. And when she didn't want to do school, and she was diagnosed during COVID times, it was like, okay, you're diagnosed, everything sucks, we're in the hospital, but we're going to go back to school. And then we get back home, and 2 months later, the world shut down. And she had to do it from home. She hated virtual school. But at the same time, she was now the same as everybody else because everybody was at home, not just her because she was immunocompromised. And that was, I guess, if you have to find a blessing in all of this, sometimes you have to find the smallest ones. That was a blessing for us because also we got to have her home with us and ensure that she was okay and safe. And she had two of the most protective big sisters on the planet, and they got to have their sister with her, and they were her absolute. That was her like leveling in life. Like her sisters kept her grounded, but also that was her support squad. I mean, outside of mom and dad, those two girls were the best big sisters that she could ever ask for. And that's where we have to go in and say that what the amazing amount and the amazing things that siblings give these kids and don't get credit for outside of it because they're not looking for it, but they deserve so much credit for what they're able to do for these children as their siblings alone.
Yeah. Yeah, Nova's siblings were much older. So, and she had brothers, living in the house with her, and they're older. Like, well, actually, two of them had moved out already, and then the other one, he was going to work and school, so he wasn't home often. And then the teenager was still in high school, so he spent the most time with her at home. And of course, he gave her such a hard time because he said, somebody has to, Mom. He's like, I got it done to me, and she just has to have it done to her. I've got to pass it down. And so he did not ever give her any slack or, he treated her as if, it really like he shouldn't have because she was not older. She was not a boy, but he was really, but he was so close to her and she loved him, and she loves all of her brothers. And so she was definitely adored and loved on and was never, she was always supported in that way. And we have such a big family, and everybody was like our family, our friends, they were there. And even meeting new families and friends that were not in our lives before became a big blessing for us, and learning all the different foundations that were out there doing something about this. When you step in this world, I had no idea about any of them. I didn't know that they were there. And so I'm so glad that they are. I'm so glad that they were. And I'm very grateful for the people that were advocating for us before we knew that we needed it, before we knew how much that was going to mean now. And that's another reason why I think, that I do that, and that you do that, is that now that we know the truth, you can't go back. Like once you've seen behind the curtains, you just can't watch play the same. And it's just, I'm not there. I think all families will take this differently. And some might even prefer to close the chapter completely and just say, I can't go back to that, and try to move on the best that they can with their lives. And then there are some where this will become their whole lives now. And either way, that's okay, because this is such a traumatic, life-changing event. And it's not even an event. It becomes life. It's daily. It's, years, it's months, however long it was. It's life-changing, and it will change you for sure from the inside out in some way or another. And I don't really fault anyone that, even in the families that just can't, it hurts. It hurts to even, talk about what happened. And so I get either side, but I am so, so grateful to those that I never knew was fighting for my daughter before this happened to her. And so I definitely want to be a part of that world that is fighting for children that will find out today, that have no idea right now what we're talking about, but they will. And they shouldn't, because little children shouldn't have to be so brave and strong all the time. They shouldn't have to go through what they're going to go through. And the families having to witness, and it's not, it affects everything in your life, your jobs, everything, like everything. It's like a identity theft. It's, it robbed you of your whole life before, and now it's like there's B, C, and AD. There's before cancer, and there's after the diagnosis, and that's now become a part of like our lives chapter. There was before and there's after. And there are parts about it that I was just telling my sister, I feel like the biggest blessing and curse is that my bubble is popped. It's gone. Like the bubble that I lived in before of how the world was or should be, even with an expectation of these things don't happen, they're not going to happen to you, whatever. Even like, I guess, unconsciously thinking this doesn't happen. It's only something you see on the TV. And if it's not, if you've never, like, we never had friends or family that had struggled with this throughout my whole life. So I didn't even, it just didn't dawn on me, except for like, the St. Jude girls, all I knew of childhood cancer. And I don't even know what I thought in my head about maybe that they were always sick or something. It's just, it just never touched my life. So I knew nothing, just completely childhood cancer ignorant. And it's like a blessing and curse that now I see, everything and the truth and how desperate our children need help. And also the truth that there's such a lack of, that it's mind-boggling to me that you have to scream out and beg for help for children. I mean, they are children, and although I think back and try to think, well, before I wasn't in this, but I also didn't see it, I didn't see it except in the commercials. But now I think to myself, why don't we see it? And I've asked, like, even someone in media, they're like, it's just not something that, you can show every day. I'm like, yeah, but look at all the other horrible crime stories you see every day. It just, I don't know. It's like you just want to shout out and scream for the whole world to stop and save these children. Because if you did, we actually could. Because it's going to take many, and it's not impossible. And even if people want to say all the different things about why or whatever, well, that's not really helping either. But I bet that if we all just came together and said, we're going to, I think that we could, everything that happened, in this country that was of historic change happened because the people got out on the streets and they were seen. And you don't really see people anymore because they're behind screens and they're on, so you can easily scroll up. You don't have to see it because you can scroll up but these things happen because people were out on the street, and that way you can't help but not see it by the thousands. And that's how I wish people would be. I know that like during the Cure Fest, they go out to Capitol Hill, and that's just a weekend. I wish that was like countrywide, that in every state and every capital there would be those same people. And it would be shown, I'm amazed how people will see like the shoe memorial. Like I'll show friends and say, I've never seen that ever before. Why isn't something like that national? Like, why isn't that on the news? It's just, I try to think of all these different things or like ways. And I was like telling my friend, like, I wish like, maybe on one of those weekends that it was a countrywide thing and everyone went to their capitals and just stood there. Like, and the children, bring the children and let them show too if they want, not like pushing children, but if they wanted to be there and have pictures of your children, pictures of your angels, the real stuff that's happening, and make this a priority. It's sad to me that it's not a hot topic when it should be in this country. A child's life. It's just amazing to me how low that priority is. And this isn't something I would wish on anyone, but like I've even said in videos before, it's not that I think it has to happen to you, but I think you have to see it to understand it. And you can't like obviously bring people into a hospital and let them sit on the treatment floor and watch this happen all day long. But man, I promise you, if you did that, there's no way that this wouldn't touch a human heart. There's just no way. And the reason it's not is because they're not seen. It's just not shown. I mean, it's just hard to look at, yes, but we're not really asking for people to feel sorry for them. That's not going to serve the children. We're just asking you to take action, to do something. Yeah. It just hurts.
No, I'm with you 100% on all of it. And I've said it in the past, but if you don't have to be connected to this community at all to understand. All you have to do is spend 5 minutes speaking to one of these children. And I'm telling you, it will change your perspective on life, because They don't have hate in their hearts. They don't have bias in their hearts. They don't have political sides in their hearts. They don't have any of that stuff. They have none of that. All they see is people. They see the world. They see opportunity. They see their hopes, their dreams. They see all of that. You speak to them for 5 minutes, it will change your life. I think that the media and I think certain commercials, I think it all does our community a huge disservice because they only show the good side. And listen, I grew up my whole life seeing St. Jude commercials, Shriners commercials, all of this. And I don't know if it's like one of those things where you are thinking about a red car and then all you see is red cars all over the place. But I feel like the commercials are on every other commercial, and that's all you see now. And maybe it's just me. Maybe it's like the Fruit of the Loom thing where, and it's all of a sudden now you see it out. But all I know is that we don't see the bad stuff. And I really think, and this is just me, and maybe not everybody agrees, but I really think that the childhood cancer commercials should resemble the ASPCA commercials. I'm sorry, but you don't show happy barking dogs and say support us because they need a home. No, you show them in the real world where they're being rescued. I will promise you that there is not a parent that is listening, that I've had on the show, that I've met at CureFest, that I've met through social media, that does not have pictures somewhere on their phone from their child's treatment that would not be safe for work. Absolutely. But that's the real side of childhood cancer. It really is. It is that sad picture that you see of the child standing over the toilet and their sibling with their hand on their back. It is you sleeping in a horrible hospital couch that pulls out into an uncomfortable bed. It is 12 of those machines that are running their medicines through that beep just incessantly that you have as a parent have figured out how to shut off and how to silence, and then you get yelled at by the nurses for doing it. But you push the call button and they don't come. It is late night trips to the hospital. It is being separated from the rest of your family when you can't all be in the hospital. It is so much that's what I want to people to see, the media to show. And no, they don't show it. And I look every single day and I see a governor or a mayor signing something, a bill or something, and I'm like, what the hell is important about that? Not to say that everybody has a cause, right?
Right.
And if you've got a cause, fight for it. But some of the stuff that is being signed into law in certain states or cities or whatever, and I'm like, what in the world is that going to change? And what does that matter? But yet you go and try to get something childhood cancer. You're already getting this. You're getting funding or whatever. Or you've got this research center and all that stuff. But philanthropy is handling the full load of what is going into pediatric cancer research. Period. Very our government, our states providing next to nothing, and it's us. It is people in the streets. It's people at capitals. It's CureFest. It's going to your senator or your representative's offices. It's us doing it, us parents. We shouldn't have to do that, and we shouldn't have had to fight what our kids should have had so that we didn't get the talk from the doctors. There's nothing more we can do. You need to go home and make memories. And you also, we'd highly recommend if you sign this piece of paper that says if your child goes into cardiac arrest or respiratory arrest, that we are not going to do anything heroic. And if nobody knows what that is, it's a DNR. And if you've ever had to sign a DNR for your 8-year-old child or your younger, that is what is going to, I believe, put you in a position to think it can't get lower than this. It can't hurt more than this to have to sign a piece of paper. And I will say personally, my 2 older daughters were mad at my wife and I, angry at us for signing it because they said, you're giving up. And we said, no, we're not. We're doing something that is going to be, that it happens, she'll go peacefully. And we won't bring her to a position where she can't live a life of any type of quality anymore. We shouldn't have to, as parents, ever think about that and ever wonder whether or not if our child is brought back from something like that they're not going to have quality of life. And we're angry.
Yeah.
We're very angry. And yes, there is a 50-50 split, and I will agree with you too. There is the parents that will go full force on this afterwards because they couldn't save their child, but they want to save others. And there's the other parents that go Homer Simpson into the bushes. And again, either way is 100% fine, and I support you in whatever you do. But I do wish that more parents were on the go scorched earth side, because we need the voices. We need the with momentum behind us that says we're not gonna let our child's life be in vain. They deserve something. They deserved more, and something that comes out of whatever we do and our child losing our child is that somebody else is going to be saved, or someone else is going to have a chance because of what they went through.
Yeah. And there's a lot of people that are around us that were not involved either before this, but now they are all in it because of it. And I'm so grateful for them, because just like when we're saying, when you're in the streets, so you have no other choice but to see this for what it is and see the great number of people it's affecting. For them, they saw it too. This is their student. This, is their child that was in daycare. This is their neighbor's friend. This, for them to see Nova, for the people in our lives that knew her, has changed them as well. And it has changed, things for the better. And, for example, even at Nelson, her school that she went to, they also raise money, for the cure. The cure starts now, whereas before that wasn't. It's not that maybe the schools and stuff didn't care. It's just that now they have been affected by, and they've seen the face, and they know the story, and they know the child, and they've watched it all. They have seen the decline. They've seen what it has done, and God bless those that this is not happening in their family, but they have been affected so much so that it has made them want to make change too. And that's a beautiful thing, because also, just like what you're saying, it shouldn't have to just be the parents that are already kicked in the butt from this completely and just devastated. And it's hard to ask someone on their knees, devastated, to do something. It should just be, it should just be the right thing to do. It should just be because they're children and they're helpless.